My parents gave sister $180,000 for a dream house, then demanded I pay their mortgage forever. My mom slid the mortgage statement across the table like it was a dinner menu, tapping the total due with her fingernail while my dad stared at his plate and chewed slowly, like the chewing itself was a statement. "It's only fair," Mum said, voice bright in that way she gets when she's about to say something unhinged but wants it to sound like a normal family request. The paper smelled faintly like her hand cream and printer ink. My sister's laughter drifted in from the lounge, where she was scrolling through listings for farmhouse sinks on her phone, the screen lighting her face like she was at a campfire. I looked down at the numbers, interest rate, repayment amount, the dates circled in red, and my brain did that thing where it tries to convert panic into math. Forever? I heard myself say, and my voice came out thin, like a question I already knew the answer to. Mom nodded once, slow and sure. Dad finally looked up and said, "You've got the good job. You can handle it." It wasn't even the words that made my throat tighten. It was how casual they were. Like we were agreeing who'd bring napkins to a picnic. Like my life was a spare room they could store their problems in. My hands went cold on my glass of water. I could feel my heartbeat in my fingertips. I glanced at Mum's face, searching for a joke that wasn't there, for some clue that this was a weird attempt at financial planning and not this. Dad's eyes slid away again, fixed on the tablecloth pattern like it had answers. From the lounge, my sister called, "What are you guys talking about?" In this sing-song voice, and Mum called back adult stuff like I was 12 and she was sparing me stress. When the adult stuff was literally them trying to sign me up as their personal bank for the rest of their lives. I swallowed and tried to speak like a sane person. "Why would I pay your mortgage?" I asked. "I don't live here." Mum's smile tightened at the corners. "Because family helps family," she said, and her tone sharpened on family, like she was reminding me of a rule I'd broken. It was a Tuesday night when all of this blew up, but the lead-up had been months of little comments and sideways expectations that I kept brushing off because I didn't want to be the dramatic one. I'm 29. I work in finance operations for a mid-sized company, nothing fancy, but it's stable and it pays okay. I rent a one-bedroom apartment that always smells like coffee because I'm addicted and my vent fan barely works. I drive a 10-year-old car with a dent in the passenger door from when a guy in a Hilux decided reverse gear was optional. I'm not rolling in money. I'm just the responsible one. The one who pays bills on time. The one who doesn't miss calls. The one who gets a Christmas bonus and puts it towards savings instead of a new sofa. And in my family, being responsible isn't seen as a trait. It's seen as an available resource. My sister, Talia, is 3 years older than me and has always been the sun around which everyone else orbits. She's not evil. She's not a cartoon villain twirling her hair and stealing my lunch money. She's just the one my parents decided was special. She was sporty at school. She was loud. She was good at walking into a room and making it feel like a party. I was the kid who got praised for being easy. As in, "Oh, you're so easy, you never cause trouble." Which sounds like a compliment until you realize it's also permission to ignore you forever. When Talia announced she wanted to buy a house, it became the family's main project. Every dinner turned into real estate talk. Every phone call was about interest rates and auction tactics, and how young people can't get ahead these days. My parents got genuinely emotional about it, like her home ownership was a community fundraiser and not a private purchase. Mom started printing listings and leaving them on the kitchen bench, highlighting potential and circling charm. Dad watched YouTube videos about renovating bathrooms. Talia posted Pinterest boards titled Dream Home and Cozy Farmhouse Vibes. Meanwhile, I was quietly renewing my lease for another year because the rental market is a nightmare and my landlord thinks replacing the hot water system is a personal attack. A couple months ago, Mom rang me on my lunch break and said, "Don't tell your sister I told you, but we're going to help her." I remember sitting in my car with my sandwich still wrapped because I'd been meaning to eat it, and then work happened, and suddenly it was 2:30. "Help how?" I asked, already wary. There was a pause, like she was choosing the version of the truth she wanted to deliver. "We've got some money put aside," she said. "We want to give her a boost. It's hard out there." "How much?" I asked. Another pause. Then she said, "Enough and laughed like that was cute. I should have pushed then. I should have said, "Is this going to affect you? Is this going to affect me?" But I didn't, because every time I've asked for clarity in my family, I've been told I'm interrogating them. So I did what I always do. I try to be supportive. "That's nice," I said, and I meant it in a general, abstract way. In a way you mean it when you donate to someone else's cause without realizing they're taking the money from your pocket. The number didn't come out until that Tuesday dinner, when everything was already tense because Mom had been complaining about the cost of groceries and Dad had been making these heavy sighs every time he stood up, like he wanted applause for having knees. We'd sat down to eat, and Mom kept glancing at me, doing that thing where she looks like she's about to announce someone's death. Halfway through, she said, "We need to talk about something important," and my stomach dropped because those words in my family usually mean either money or shame. Dad pushed his fork around his plate. Mom pulled out the mortgage statement and slid it toward me. "We're going to need you to help us," she said. "Help you how?" I asked, and I could already feel my face heating up because part of me knew exactly where this was going and part of me didn't want to believe it. Mom tapped the statement again. "With this," she said, "the repayments. It's gotten tight." I stared at the amount. Then I looked at them. "Why is it tight?" I asked. "You've been fine for years." Dad finally spoke, voice low. "We've had to take on extra." "For what?" I asked, and my voice was too sharp now. I could hear it. I could hear the edge, the disbelief. Mom inhaled and said, like ripping off a bandage, "We gave Talia $180,000. The room did that thing where it goes too quiet. I could hear the fridge hum. I could hear the clock ticking. My own breath sounded loud in my ears. "Sorry," I said automatically because my brain couldn't process it, so I tried to rewind. "What?" Mom nodded, eyes shining like she expected me to be proud. "For her deposit. Her dream house. It's an investment in the family," she said, as if she was explaining a sensible retirement strategy. 180, I repeated, and it tasted like metal. 1,000. Dad kept looking down. Mom's chin lifted. "Yes," she said, "and now we need you to help with the mortgage. Until things settle." "Settle?" I echoed. Mom waved a hand. "Until we're back on our feet. Until the interest rates. Until—" She made a vague motion like the economy was a storm that would pass if we waited politely. "And when is that?" I asked. Dad finally looked up, and his eyes were tired and stubborn. "We're not asking you to count months," he said. "We're asking you to be supportive." That's when I said, "forever," because the statement in front of me didn't look like a temporary problem. It looked like a plan. Mom didn't deny it. She just nodded and said, "Well, you're not married. You don't have kids. You can afford it." It was so blunt, I almost laughed. Instead, my throat tightened. I looked toward the lounge, where Talia was scrolling through sync options like she wasn't the reason my parents were about to become my dependents. "Does Talia know you're asking me this?" I asked. Mom's eyes flicked away. "We haven't told her yet," she said. "We don't want to stress her." And that was it. That was the sentence that made something inside me snap into clarity. They didn't want to stress her. They'd rather stress me. They'd rather rearrange my entire financial future than have an uncomfortable conversation with the daughter they've built their world around. I stood up so fast my chair scraped the tile. "Are you serious?" I asked, voice shaking now. "You gave her $180,000, and you don't want to stress her?" Mom's face hardened immediately. "Don't raise your voice," she said, automatically, like volume was the problem. Dad's jaw tightened. "Sit down," he said. Talia appeared in the doorway, phone in hand, smiling like she was walking into a fun scene. "What's going on?" she asked. Mom plastered on a smile that looked painful. "Nothing, love," she said. "Just talking." I stared at my sister. She looked genuinely confused, and for a second I wondered if she truly didn't know. But then I remembered the way she'd been posting manifesting captions and talking about the universe providing, while my parents were apparently refinancing their house like it was no big deal. "Did you know they gave you $180,000? I asked her. Her eyes widened, then darted to Mom, then back to me. She said, and the hesitation told me everything. "I mean, they offered to help." "Help," I repeated. $180,000 of help." She shrugged, and I swear I could have screamed. It's not like they're broke, she said. They said they were fine. Dad slammed his hand down lightly. Enough, he snapped, like I'd started it by naming numbers. I turned to him. You want enough? I said, tell me how you're expecting me to pay your mortgage. Dad's voice went cold. Because you owe us, he said. That word, oh, hit me in the chest. Mum's eyes sharpened like she'd been waiting for him to say it. After everything we've done, she added. I felt my hands shaking. Everything you've done? I echoed. You mean parenting me? The thing you chose to do when you had me. Mum's face went red. See, she said to Talia, gesturing at me like I was proof of something. This is what I mean. She gets like this. She twists things. There it was. The script. The label. I could almost hear it being passed down like a family heirloom. I'm sensitive. I'm dramatic. I twist things. I looked at my sister again. Do you realize what they're asking me? I asked. Talia frowned, like she couldn't quite be bothered with the emotional labor. They're asking you to help, she said. You can. You always act like everything is so hard. That one stung because it was such a lazy interpretation of my entire life. Like my stability was proof I'd never struggled. Like the nights I'd eaten 2-minute noodles to make rent didn't count because I didn't broadcast them. I sat back down, not because I was calm, but because if I stayed standing I might start crying, and I refused to cry in front of them. Okay, I said, voice low. Let's be specific. How much are you expecting me to pay? Mum immediately softened, like she thought I'd surrendered. Just the mortgage, she said. We'll cover the rest. Rates and bills, obviously. We're not monsters. Still here. You want me to pay your mortgage, I repeated slowly, so you can keep covering your bills after giving away $180,000, and you haven't even told Talia you're doing this. Mum nodded, as if I'd summarized a perfectly sensible plan. Yes, she said. Thank you. That's what family does. And what does Talia do? I asked. Talia's eyes flashed. Excuse me, she snapped, like I'd insulted her by suggesting she should contribute to her own rescue mission. What do you do? I repeated. If family helps family, what are you doing to help? Are you paying them back? Are you contributing to their mortgage? Are you? Why would I pay their mortgage? Talia scoffed. I'm trying to buy a house. I have expenses. I actually laughed in one short, disbelieving sound. Right, I said. Of course. Dad leaned forward. You can either help or you can stop coming around, he said flatly. The threat sat there on the table between the salt and pepper shakers. Mum didn't argue. Talia stared at me like I was being unreasonable for not immediately handing over my bank details. Something in me went very still. It was like my body finally accepted a truth my brain had been dodging for years. I wasn't being asked. I was being assigned. I pushed my plate away. I could barely taste the food anyway. I need to see your finances, I said. Mum blinked. What? If you want me to pay your mortgage, I said, trying to keep my voice even, I need to see the full picture. Bank statements. Debt. What you refinanced. Everything. Dad's face darkened. No, he said immediately. Mum's voice sharpened. That's invasive, she said. How dare you? How dare I? I repeated, my voice cracked. You just demanded I pay your mortgage forever, and I'm invasive? Talia rolled her eyes. This is why we can't talk to you, she muttered, loud enough for everyone to hear. You make everything transactional. I turned to her. It is transactional, I said. They literally want my money. Mum slapped the table. Hard enough this time that the cutlery jumped. Stop, she snapped. You're making a scene. I stared at her, heart pounding. You made the scene when you decided to give away your retirement and then invoice me for it, I said, and I stood up again. I'm not doing this. Dad's face went rigid. Then don't come crying to us when you need help, he said. I paused with my bag over my shoulder. The word should have scared me, because that's how they've controlled me forever. This idea that family is the only safety net. But suddenly it just sounded empty, because when had they actually been my safety net? When I was struggling with rent, Mum told me to budget better. When I had panic attacks in uni, Dad told me to toughen up. When I got my first decent job, they took credit for raising me right. Their support always came with conditions and applause. I looked at Dad. You're already asking me for help, I said quietly. So let's not pretend you're the one holding power here. Then I left. I sat in my car outside their house and shook for a full minute. My hands were sweaty on the steering wheel. My phone buzzed immediately. Mom, then Dad, then Talia. I didn't answer. I couldn't. If I answered, I'd either cave or explode, and I wasn't ready to do either. When I got home, I took my shoes off and just stood in my kitchen staring at the sink like it was an instruction manual. The quiet felt unreal after the noise of my family's entitlement. I made tea I didn't drink. I paced. I sat down. I stood up again. My brain kept replaying Mum's words. You're not married. You don't have kids. You can afford it. Like my life being different made it less valuable. That night, Mum sent me a message, so long it came in 3 parts. It was full of after everything we've done, and we're your parents, and we just need you to step up. Dad's message was shorter. Don't be selfish. Talia's message was the one that made me feel sick. You always hate when good things happen for me. I stared at that sentence until it blurred. Because it wasn't true. I don't hate good things for her. I hate being treated like the family spare tire. The next morning at work, I tried to pretend I was fine. I answered emails. I joined a Teams call. I smiled at a coworker and felt my face do it automatically like muscle memory. But my chest felt tight all day, like my body was bracing for another demand. At lunch, I finally did something I should have done years ago. I called my parents' bank. Not to snoop, not to steal, just to ask a basic question. If a third party wanted to pay someone else's mortgage, what would that involve? The woman on the phone was polite but firm. We can't discuss account details without authorization, she said. But generally, if you are making regular payments, we recommend a formal arrangement. Otherwise, you have no rights or protections. No rights. No protections. Of course. That night, I drafted a message to Mom and Dad that I rewrote about 12 times because my hands kept shaking and I kept slipping into apology mode. The final version was simple. I'm not paying your mortgage. If you want help, show me your full financial picture and we can discuss a short-term plan. Otherwise, no. Mom replied in under a minute. How dare you treat us like clients? Dad replied, we didn't raise you to be like this. And then, 20 minutes later, Talia called. I almost didn't answer, but part of me wanted to hear what she'd say without Mom coaching her. Hey, she said, voice tense. Hey, I said, bracing. She sighed dramatically. Mom's crying, she said, like that was my responsibility to fix. Okay, I said. She says you're refusing to help. Talia continued. Like you don't care if they lose the house. I pinched the bridge of my nose. They won't lose the house, I said. They have options. They just don't like them. What options? She snapped. Like, you paying them back, I said, and I couldn't help the edge of my voice. There was a pause. Then she said flatly, I can't. Because you just got handed a house, I said. Or because you don't want to. Her breath hitched. You're being nasty, she said. No, I said. I'm being accurate. She huffed. They did this for me because they love me, she said, and the childlike certainty of it made me feel hollow. They wouldn't have offered if they couldn't afford it. They can't afford it, I said, and my voice cracked. That's the point. They refinanced. They're asking me to cover their repayment indefinitely. Talia went quiet. I could hear traffic in the background, like she was walking somewhere, probably feeling like the victim in her own movie. Finally, she said, Mom said you make good money, like it was the trump card. I make decent money, I said. And I also pay rent. And I also have my own life. And I didn't agree to be your parents' retirement plan. So what? She said, voice rising. You'd rather they struggle? I laughed once, humorless. I've been struggling quietly for years, I said. And nobody cared. Not even you. That hit a nerve. That's not true, she snapped. Ikare. Then prove it, I said, and my hands were shaking again. Tell them you'll pay them back. Even a little. Tell them you'll contribute to their mortgage since you benefited from the refinance. Tell them it's not fair to dump it on me. Talia didn't answer immediately. Then she said, softer, they didn't tell me it would affect you. I felt anger flare, hot and sharp. They didn't tell you, I repeated, because they didn't want to stress you. Those were Mom's words. Talia was quiet for a long beat. Then she said, I didn't ask them to do this, and there was something in her tone that sounded uncertain, like the first crack in a story she'd been telling herself. You accepted it, I said. Silence again. Then she whispered, they said it was either now or never. That if I didn't buy now, I'd be renting forever. They said you'd understand. Of course they did. Of course my role in their narrative is the one who understands while everyone else gets to be the one who receives. I took a breath. I do understand, I said, and I surprised myself with how sad it sounded. I understand you want a house. I understand they want to give you one. I understand they're scared of getting older and feeling like they failed if you don't have what they think you should have. I understand all of it. What I don't understand is why I'm the one expected to pay for it. Talia didn't respond. I could hear her sniff, like she was crying or like she wanted me to think she was. Finally, she said, Mom said if you don't help, Dad will have to pick up extra work. And I said because I was so done with emotional blackmail, I could taste it. Dad chose to refinance. Dad chose to give you $180,000. Dad can also choose to sell the car he never drives. They can choose to downsize. They can choose to tell you the truth. They can choose a lot of things. They're choosing me because it's easy. Talia's voice got small. So you're really not going to? No, I said. Not like that. Not without transparency. Not without boundaries. She whispered, they'll hate you. That sentence hit me like she'd said it 100 times before, like it was a law of physics in our family. Keep them happy or be punished. I swallowed. They could be mad, I said. I've spent my whole life trying not to be the reason anyone's mad, and it's never been enough. We hung up after that, and I sat on my couch staring at the wall, feeling like I just walked out of a burning building and realized I didn't know where to go next. I kept expecting the guilt to win. I kept expecting myself to fold and send Mom some compromise like, okay, I'll do it for 6 months because that's how it always goes. I offer myself up to stop the discomfort. But something stubborn had settled in my chest. Something tired. Something that didn't want to keep bleeding quietly just so my family could pretend everything was fine. 2 days later, Mom showed up at my apartment unannounced. I opened the door and there she was, holding a plastic container of leftovers like a peace offering. Her eyes were puffy. Her mouth was set in that tight line she uses when she's rehearsed a speech. Can I come in? She asked. I stepped aside because I'm apparently incapable of being rude, even when someone is trying to financially ruin me. She walked straight into my tiny living room, looked around like she was checking for evidence of my failures, and sat down without waiting to be invited. She put the container on my coffee table. I brought you food, she said, like food could erase what she'd asked. Thanks, I said, and I stayed standing because if I sat down, I felt like I'd be agreeing to something. Mom clasped her hands. We're very hurt, she began. I blinked. You're hurt, I repeated. Yes, she said, voice rising. We raised you. We sacrificed. And now, when we need you, you're acting like we're strangers asking for a loan. I took a breath. Mom, I said, trying to keep my voice calm, you gave Talia $180,000. You refinanced your house. Then you demanded I pay your mortgage indefinitely. That's not normal. Mom's eyes flashed. It's not indefinitely, she snapped. Then tell me the end date, I said. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Exactly, I said. Mom's eyes filled. You don't understand, she whispered, and for a second she looked genuinely scared. If we don't keep up, we could lose everything. You should have thought about that before giving away $180,000, I said, and my voice cracked on the last word because the cruelty of it hit me all over again. Mom flinched like I'd slapped her. How can you say that about your sister? She demanded. You're still protecting her, I said quietly. Even now, Mom's voice went sharp again, defensive. We are her parents, she said. We want her to have a good start. And what am I? I asked, and it came out smaller than I meant. Mom hesitated. That hesitation was its own answer. I swallowed hard. I'm not paying your mortgage, I said again, more firmly. If you're in trouble, show me the full situation and I'll help you make a plan. But I'm not signing my future away because you won't tell Talia no. Mom's lips trembled. Then she said, so you're abandoning us. I felt my chest tighten. That's not what this is, I said. This is me refusing to be used. Mom stood up abruptly. You're so cold, she spat, and her voice changed into something ugly. Maybe your father was right. Maybe you really are. She stopped herself, but the rest of his sentence hung in the air anyway. Maybe you really are the problem. I stared at her, heart pounding. Say it, I said quietly. Mom's eyes flicked away. She grabbed her bag. I didn't come here to fight, she snapped, like she hadn't just walked into my home to emotionally corner me. I opened the door. My hands were shaking, but my voice was steady. If you want help, I said, you know what I need. Transparency, a time frame, boundaries, and Talia contributing. Otherwise, no. Mom glared at me like I'd betrayed her personally. Then she walked out. After she left, my apartment felt too quiet. I picked up the container of leftovers and stared at it like it was a joke. Mom's love has always come wrapped in obligation. Here's food, now do what I want. That night, Dad texted, your mother is devastated. You're tearing this family apart. I didn't reply. I sat with the discomfort until it stopped feeling like poison and started feeling like grief. A week later, something happened that made everything even worse and also, weirdly, clearer. My aunt, Dad's sister, called me. We don't talk much. She's the blunt one. The one who always shows up late to Christmas and doesn't care if Mom disapproves. When I saw her name on my phone, I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Hey, she said, no greeting fluff. Your mom told me you're refusing to help with their mortgage. I closed my eyes. Yeah, I said. That's the story. There was a pause, and then my aunt said, they didn't tell you the whole truth. My stomach dropped. What truth? I asked, and my voice went cold. She exhaled. They didn't just refinance for your sister, she said. Your dad took out a loan last year. Personal. Not huge, but enough. He's been paying it off. I found out because he asked me for money, and I said no. My whole body went hot. For what? I asked. My aunt hesitated. He said it was for repairs, she said, and her voice turned sharp with disbelief. But then I heard from someone else he's been dabbling. Crypto. Those stupid online trading groups. He lost money. He's embarrassed. So now they're drowning, and they're trying to make it your problem. I sat down hard on my couch, heart pounding. It felt like the floor had tilted. Are you sure? I whispered. Do I sound unsure? She snapped. Listen, I'm not calling to be kind. I'm calling because I'm sick of them making you the villain when your dad's pride is the actual issue. Don't let them guilt you into paying for his mistakes. I stared at the wall, breathing shallow. Suddenly the pieces clicked. The heavy sighs. The vague things got tight. The refusal to show me their finances. It wasn't just Talia's house. It was secrecy layered on secrecy, and I was being asked to pay for all of it without even knowing what it was. When I hung up, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt nauseous, because the worst part wasn't that my dad had made a bad decision. People make bad decisions. The worst part was that they looked at me, their kid, and decided my job was to absorb the consequences quietly so they could keep pretending everything was fine. That night, I sent one message. A single paragraph. No pleading. No over-explaining. I know there's more debt you haven't told me about. I'm not paying anything until you show me everything. Mortgage, loans, credit cards, all of it. And if you want me to help at all, Talia needs to contribute too, because this situation was created to fund her house. I'm not your financial plan. I'm your child. Mom replied with one word. How dare you? Dad didn't reply at all, but Talia did an hour later in a message that made my stomach twist in a different way. They didn't tell you about Dad's loan? I stared at the screen. My hand started shaking again, but this time it was a rage I could actually locate. So she knew. Not all the details, maybe not the exact amount, but she knew there was something. She knew they were strained. And she still accepted $180,000 and let them set me up as the solution. I didn't respond. I couldn't trust what I'd say. The next day, my parents stopped calling. The silence felt like punishment and relief at the same time. Like being locked out of a house you didn't realize was toxic until you stepped into fresh air. I wish I could tell you there was a neat ending where they apologized, sold the house, downsized, and everyone learned a valuable lesson about boundaries. Real life isn't a tidy moral. Real life is messy and slow and full of people who would rather double down than admit they're wrong. What I can tell you is this. I didn't pay their mortgage. I did offer help. Real help. I emailed Mom a list of financial counseling services and a rough breakdown of options: restructuring, downsizing, selling, even temporary hardship arrangements with the bank. I offered to sit with them if they wanted to make a plan. I offered to contribute to a short-term emergency fund if they were transparent and if Talia was part of it. Mom refused. Dad stayed silent. Talia posted a photo of a sold sticker on a real estate sign and captioned it, "Dreams do come true." And the strangest thing happened after that. Without the constant pressure to be the good one, the easy one, the one who understands, I started noticing how much energy I'd been spending just trying to be acceptable. I stopped answering every call immediately. I stopped apologizing for asking questions. I stopped trying to translate my family's cruelty into "they mean well." It still hurts. It hurts in this dull way, like an old bruise you keep bumping into. Sometimes I'll be at the shops and see a mother and daughter laughing over something stupid, and I'll get this sudden, sharp grief because I realize I've been fighting for scraps of that my whole life. Sometimes I'll get a message from Mom that's just a photo of the family dog, like nothing happened, like she's trying to slide back into normal without addressing the knife she left in my ribs. Sometimes I'll lie awake and think, what if they really do lose the house? What if I'm the villain in their story forever? Then I remember my dad's voice, "You owe us." And I remember Mom's, "You're not married. You don't have kids. You can afford it." And I remember the mortgage statement on the table like a menu, like my life was something they could order. And I remind myself, being someone's child is not a lifetime debt. The last thing that happened, this is where I'm at right now, is Dad finally texted me yesterday after 2 weeks of silence. Just one line. "If you don't transfer the first payment by Friday, don't bother coming to Christmas." I stared at it for a long time. My chest went tight, then strangely calm. Because once someone turns love into a bill, you start seeing everything clearly. So yeah, that's where I am. It's December. There's a threat hanging over the holiday, like tinsel. My sister is picking paint colors for her dream house funded by my parents' panic. My parents are still acting like I'm the one tearing the family apart, because I won't pay their mortgage forever. And I'm sitting here, not sure if I'm about to lose my family or finally stop losing myself.